Hey, this is Jeffrey Hayzlett. Thanks so very much for joining us today. I want to talk a little bit about, certainly C-suite radio, but what we're doing in the business side of radio and helping to turning up volume on business. Now, B2B podcasting is a heck of a lot different than what you would see with B2C podcasting, with the serials, with entertainment, education, along those lines. But with a B2B podcast, you can certainly provide some education, inspiration, motivation, and certainly a little, as we would call it, monetization. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing and what's driving that. And then, of course, what we can do to improve that and what you might do to set up your own B2B podcast. And I'll tell you a little bit about C-Suite Radio and what we're doing, how we're doing it. Our goal is really to talk about turning up the volume on your business. Now, it's very critical that most people are now starting to realize that content is king, activation's queen, and context is the kingdom. So being able to put your message in the right place at the right time. And I'll talk to you about some of the real benefits of having a B2B podcast as opposed to, regular consumer podcast, and then what you can do to be able to build that. Now, we built it into the world's largest and first all business podcast network, have well over 250 shows on our network, adding a new show about every other day. So we have quite a bit that are coming on. And it won't be a commercial for us. I want to talk to you more about B2B and what the trends are and why you need to do this and why it's important for a brand or a person to create their own podcast and what you can do to really monetize that podcast. Because if you think you're going to get rich off of podcasting, you're probably not. But you can use podcasting as an effective tool. There are some that certainly are able to get rich or have a significant volume, but few and far between. That's the very 1-2% of all podcasting in the world, and certainly here in the United States, if you're listening from the US where I'm based. So I really want to talk to you about that. Now, when you get a little background on me, listen, I bought and sold over 250 businesses in my career, well over 25 billion in transaction. I'm a Fortune 100 officer. I used to be a judge on Celebrity Apprentice, had my own television show on Bloomberg, and I went off and started my own television network and my own community group that we have. It's a executive group called C-Suite Network. And inside of that, we have C-Suite Network. We have the C-Suite TV show. So we have C-Suite Radio, C-Suite Book Club, C-Suite, anything with C-Suite, that's what we are. We're kind of like a giant sequoia tree and underneath this lush ecosystem. And then, of course, we're driving membership, counseling, concierge services, and all types of meetings and educational programs that we run. Again, trying to be the most trusted network to C-suite executives. Now, what's driving this? The landscape itself. We really came from what was an analog world moving to digital. And then as we were doing that, we started seeing broadcast move to narrowcast. And in the end, what we're ending up with in terms of markets is these segments of one. And I'll talk about eyeballs and ears versus hearts and minds a little bit later. But indeed, what we're doing with digital, the way it's really formatted, the way we've got these, personal listening devices now, our phones are the most important device there is, more important than our cars. In fact, think about this. If you lost your phone and your kids in the mall at the same time, which one would you go looking for first? Yeah, your phone. Yeah, you're rationalizing it right now because, if you found your phone, you can call your kids. All right. Now, so it's really about getting to segments of one. Now, we'd like to get to broader, bigger groups, but it's really not happening for us anymore the way it used to be. You've really got to build that community and build that one-to-one connection that you want to have with everybody. So content delivery has changed in our ways of communication. Now it used to be you just broadcast out to everybody, be on the radio shows, be on TV shows, you get to everybody. So it's now truly about content delivery because everybody is doing this select and delete. I want this, I don't want this. This is relevant for me, this is irrelevant. And so it makes it tough for advertising and sales to be able to find the right kinds of sponsors to put them in. So we're going to talk a little bit need for network a little bit later so that a network can bring you the advertisers, a network can bring you and consolidate or aggregate everybody together in one place as opposed to out there on your own. Now, you can do it on your own, but typically a network or some kind of affiliation with the network is important. And then productions made it easy. I mean, you can do a podcast off of Zoom now. Maybe not the best quality as opposed to a Zencaster or Podcaster or Squadcast and some of the others, but you can do it. You can certainly do it. And distribution has gotten easy. And of course it's everywhere. You know, it used to be just iTunes or one or two places or key radio shows, you know, on key radio stations or in terms of audio content, but now it's pretty much ubiquitous and it's everywhere. So you can go to one, and from one network, one hosting thing, go to thousands and thousands of places. And of course, it's changed the way that we look at innovation, especially in business. It used to be, you know, it was a top-down driven approach. Now it's customer driven. That communication's changed, and it's changing the way that we look and do everything. So it's driving various trends. And most of it is mobile, mobile, mobile. Without a question, this is where you want to be. You want to be on this device, the most personal device. And so it's giving us so many other things in terms of community building, building your own tribe, permission-based auto buys, constant contact, cloud access, and, you know, literally audio and video like we've never seen. Of course, friends being an important part of that. So that audio and video, because now you can do a podcast show and broadcast it or live cast it on LinkedIn and Facebook. I've been doing that every single day. Went from a weekly podcast show to a daily broadcasting, or I call it live casting, to Facebook and LinkedIn. And now we've been able to practice with the software and turn that into a television show. So you can actually, you know, look at different kinds of ways to do it, all driving from trends. And we're finding that you can really got to get real clear with, you know, privacy and trust and be more open and transparent. And, you know, branded entertainment now, you know, I've got sponsors or had sponsors like Dunkin' Donut and Fortinet and others where I can work the commercial in, you know, literally in the conversation, live read-ins and so forth that we are able to offer. So it's just changed the game for all of us across the board and how we're now approaching the way in which we want to do podcasting or communication to customers or to our community and be able to hold them. So the result means changing the mediums and media. And so that's why, you know, podcasting has become so important, because there's less print, there's more blending of the messages. And so what you might do in social, you also need to do with podcasting. What you might do with TV, you need to do with podcasting and TV, and then so forth, and blogs. And then, you know, everything becomes intertwined, and it's not just one thing. Because what you're finding with your messages, if you want to be great in terms of that B2B business, you got to go where the customers are. And you got to find them, because it's changed for them. The way they consume content has changed. And so what that all means, I'm telling you right now, is your message is getting harder and harder to get across, okay? So it's important for you to be where the people are. And of course, right now, that's with podcasting. So I tell people what we were trying to do here is leverage other people's money. Okay, so you're using a medium to be able to use guests to come on and tell the story that you want and go through what I call the 4 E's, which are engage, okay? To get engaged with people, you educate, you excite them, and you evangelize. That leads to bigger and bigger things about partnerships and selling memberships or selling courses or selling subscriptions or selling books or selling products. All those things, if you're, you know, truly transparent, you're real and you're human, and they see that or hear that, then you're able to really, you know, sell that. And so the big advice here is to let go. Don't try to control. Just let things start to happen, but be core and to yourself. And what you do is you'll start to build that scale. Okay. And that's where the real new numbers are, is about the scale of what you're doing and who and where you're doing it. Okay. So you don't want to look at it. And I'll talk about that at the very bottom there, old versus new. It used to be a game of eyeballs and ears. And now really, truly, it's a game of hearts and minds. Okay. So I tell people, don't worry about the downloads, because it's truly about that hearts and minds. So if you're in the B2B space and I have a B2B show, and I'm bringing on people that I want to do business with, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well, because the real crux, the real way to make a show work is build the business of the business you want to do business with by bringing on those people that you want to do business with. So you interview potential customers, in essence, and turn that into a show. And as a result, they want to work with you and you get the business. Okay. Very, very important. Okay. So it's really about hearts and minds, because how many deals do you have to make? Like, if I can convert 1/3 of the people, that the CEOs that I have on my show, or in some way, shape, or form, get them involved in the business and the way that I'm doing things, I win. And I'm using other people's money, which is what I talked about a minute ago. So it's really about the reverb, my messages time my followers and friends, really. Okay. My message time my followers and friends by turning in, fans. Okay. By making people part of my community and getting them more involved, I get more video time. I get more listener time, audio time. Okay. So really it's about the content versus impressions. All right. That's fundamental. Now, people will tell you that, and most people tell you that because they don't have any followers. They don't have any friends. Well, that's not the case. We're setting a new record, over 1 million a month, okay, and growing. It keeps getting bigger. We're setting records with the number of members that we have on. We're setting records with the number of downloads that we're getting, all those things, but we care more about the content. And by you care more about the content, it will come. It will come. That's what you want to focus on, and we want to strive. So to all the naysayers, opportunists, instructions, stand in the way of driving change. Hey, in what you want to do, no, we're going to beat you. Okay, this is going to work. And so for all those people who said, hey, you can only make pennies in the digital business. All right, those pennies add up to dollars. All right, so those small fan bases, 250, 300, 500, maybe you get yourself up to 2,500 downloads. Hey, that's pretty decent for most business podcasts. But again, how 2,500 people listen to you, that your target audience, and how many of those do you need to make it work? That's the way you want to be thinking when you go into this. Don't go in there thinking I'm going to be Joe Rogan. Don't go in there thinking I'm going to be Jeff Hayzlett. Don't go in there and think I'm going to be this big, bad, podcaster. Go in there thinking I'm going to serve the audience that I want, and I'm going to get the results that I deserve. Okay. That's what's going to happen to you if you do it. So, because the worst thing anybody can say about you is nothing. So the new thing is just to get out there and do it, make it happen, and do it the way you want to. I enjoy the podcast mostly because I'm having a great conversation with somebody and learning some great things, whether it's about, COVID vaccine, or it's about how somebody did somebody, or did a deal in terms of a business deal, or whatever. I mean, I enjoy listening and learning, and I always get something. And that's one of my big lessons at the end of the show is I give, hey, what did I learn in this last show? So for me, that is just exciting, and I just love it. Okay. Now let's find a way to make this work and talk about the media and talk about how do I build a winning B2B podcast. All right. First of all, I want to think about what is frequency. What is it that I should do? Should it be a monthly? Should it be a daily? Should it be a weekly? I mean, these are the kind of things you want to think through. I will tell you that at least you want one every 2 weeks. All right. And the most important that we find in the B2B podcast is people count on regular kinds of schedules. So whatever it is, try to do your best to be regular, okay, in the schedule. So if it's once a month, it's once a month. If it's every Tuesday, it's every Tuesday. If it's every day, it's every day, okay? That's the key, is if you're going to do it on a regular basis. If you shoot 10 or tape 10 at a time, and you release them all at the same time, that's okay too, because people do like to binge. But once you start building up an inventory of hundreds of shows or tens of shows, what's really cool is that people will first find you and then go back and listen over that, that library of content that you have, and go back to your very first ones, even though they were 3 years ago. I mean, I have that all the time, and people say, I just listened to that one with you and Gene Simmons, or you and Piers Morgan, or you and Steve Forbes. Well, those were 2 or 3 years ago, but nonetheless, it's good. So frequency, be regular. Okay. And then do it the way you want. If you want to do it daily, you want to do it weekly, you want to do it twice a week, 3 times a week, doesn't make a difference. It's yours. Okay. Length. Okay. Here's what we find on B2B podcasts, between 22 and 27 minutes. That's on average. That's what we do. Now, I started doing a podcast that was an hour long. Okay. No. Okay. Over time, I looked at my audience started dropping off. Now, you want to know the behavior of your audience. That's one of the cool things. Like if you're with C-Suite Radio, we're giving you is how long they listen, when do they listen, what times they listen, how do they go back and start it again. All of those things are really cool for you, because that helps you frame, because whatever you start today, a year from now, you will not be doing it the same. Okay. I'll guarantee you will get better at it. You'll fine tune it. You'll figure it out. You'll find what works, what doesn't work. You'll hear back from people. And then you just learn to get a better sense of who you are as a podcaster. So think about those kinds of things when you get started. So a link, typically we find that most B2B podcasters, they're doing it during the commute, hard to do during COVID nonetheless, but they do it during their commute, either there or back. So think what the average commute is, 20 minutes. Aha. By the time they get the coffee, get in the car, start the car, drive out the thing, hit the button, get started, they're 5 minutes into it. So they got the 20 minutes. So if your podcast is like 35, well, they're not going to sit in the parking lot and listen to the rest of your show. They're going to turn it off, right? So think about that. So I typically try to go to between 22 and 24 minutes because I got my intro, I got my exits, right? I got my what did I learn today? I got my intro, then the music, and then this, and then there's a commercial that's inserted 4 times. That's at least that's what we do. So you want to think about that link in typically 22 to 27 minutes. There you go. Format. Audio and or video. Well, listen, if you got the chance to do video, I'd say do video, wherever you possibly can. Certainly you can do a live cast, right? And then you can go back and edit the episode and take out all the stuff that doesn't apply. But if you can do the video, it's just one more medium to get in front of your customer. Now, it's also a cost factor. Now, if you're doing it in a studio, can you get them in the studio? So if you can't get them in the studio, then what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to do it remotely. Will it work? Well, there are a lot better tools than there were a year ago, 2 years ago. And now I'm seeing Joe Rogan not even do stuff in the studio. He's bringing people from outside. So I think that the timing is good for that. So if you can, and if you got a face for video, hey, go for it, do it. It's really a style thing. Most podcasters and most podcast listeners are still going to be listening, okay? And I will tell you, the biggest thing you got to focus on, here's the big secret, sound quality, right? Sound quality is very critical when it comes to podcasts. So because they're listening on a in-home video audio device, or they're listening, with Beats, or they're listening with headphones or whatever, and those pops, those clicks, those little annoying noises, they become a real problem. So how you going to do it in a studio, or are you going to do it remote? I love it when I can do it in the studio. When I was doing podcasting with CBS as a headliner for CBS Radio, well, that was great. I had a studio. Everybody came to the studio. We did it there. But I'd also do some remote too. And now the tools are so much easier than they were when I first got started 2 or 3 years ago. Now you can literally, listen, I'm holding a Samsung meter mic or whatever that is. It's a to-go mic, a mobile mic. I can travel with it. It's easy to do. Got lights, got everything. Got a green screen behind me. It can make it work. It's simple and easy to do. So it's really up to you what you want to do. But it's easy to do it from a remote studio. You can do it from hotel rooms. I do it all the time. And at C-Suite Radio, we give our host we'll give them a kit. They'll hang on the door, says, genius in progress, taping or recording. But there are some things you got to think about in terms of Wi-Fi. If you don't want to do Wi-Fi, you want to hook it up to a hard line. So you got, because when you're doing that remote, you get some bad connections and you lose somebody and it's sketchy. But I do like to have a provider, though, that does it where they record the sound on their computer, my computer, and up in the cloud, and then we download both of those at the end of it. So like a Squadcast or a Zencaster, those are kind of really nice things. And I understand that Squadcast is now offering video. So, and we're using Zoom, because one of the things we're doing with Zoom is we're able to actually put it out, on a live cast, and that's been very, very helpful for us. So, what about podcast in general? Remember I said business is about 25 minutes for the average, it's 40 minutes, but business is about 25. So business typically a little shorter. And I mentioned before, quality of sound is everything. You must. And then ads are optional, but that's how I make my money. Okay. At C-Suite Radio, we get about $50 right now, about $50 per 1,000. And we split that with our radio hosts. So if you're one of our radio hosts, we split that 50-50. So we're driving pre-roll and post. And we also utilize some interstitials in the middle of the show too, depending on how many you want. And we have some shows that are a little longer. They put eight ads in them. Some only put 1, some only put 2, some put just front and back, meaning pre-roll and post. So it really doesn't make a difference, really, what you want to do and how it fits for you. And of course, you could still have sponsors. You can do live read-in versus dynamic advertising, or digital advertising that's inserted. I typically like the dynamic, because if I'm doing a read-in, I lose it's evergreen. And so I lose the ability to really charge for that a year from now. So if I'm still hot, still having people listen, and I've got some of those shows that are in my top 10 that were a year, 2 years ago, and people still listening to them as much as my present shows. Now, when that happens, if I've done a read-in, I don't be able to get it. And it's a pain to, quite frankly, to do those a little bit. So, but I know a lot of people, that's all they want to do. I know a lot of folks that advertisers, that's all they want are read-ins. But we're seeing that the dynamic insertions of ads being the biggest thing that we do. So very important. Okay, only got a minute or two left, so I'm really going to go. And I remember what I said about downloads. They don't mean anything. Everybody talks about downloads. Everybody lies about their downloads. That's one of the things we know. Everybody says they're here, they're here, they're here, and they're really way down here. So it's really about what is it you want to get from the show. And the biggest secret I can tell you about a B2B podcast is go and interview the people you want to do business with. And that's a way for you to be able to show off a little bit, tell them the story. Hey, listen, I mentioned about us, 250 top business shows featuring A-list podcasters. We got some great lineups, good people. We got corporate packages. We're able to provide show sponsorships, all kinds of things on the show. We'll even share with you rate sheets that like my show uses and other shows use, and how we do that, the way we do that. And we get together on a regular basis and we talk about some very big things that happen in the industry, and we trade secrets all the time. So come and take a look at us here at C-Suite Radio. This is Jeffrey Hayzlett. Thanks so much. If I can help you in any way, just let me know. Email me, call me, whatever. We're more than happy to help because we're all in this together. And I thank you so very, very much for being a part of this very special program today. And thank you for allowing me to be with you.